Okay, so let's work on our second version. So our second version, again, we're going to click Option, Shift, and drag, and we're going to build out our second version. For our second version, we're going to include a hamburger style menu. So we're going to completely ditch that sticky menu. We can keep that image in the back for now. But let's actually, I'm going to go ahead and borrow this. Always don't want to reinvent the wheel. Let's bring that up there. And I'm going to bring that little hamburger menu that we borrowed from the elements. I'm going to change it to white so it doesn't disappear on our blue, size it up a little bit. Again, turning that grid on and making sure we're working within it. Center it up, and there we go. We're already almost there here. What I do want to do is I want to screen that logo back. Again, this isn't representative of actual colors. I'm just showing some contrast. That may be the logo. I'm imagining an image here. Our logo is going to kind of rest upon that header. So now we have our order now menu. So now we just have a little variation. So I apologize I didn't go over this in the kind of first introductory section. When we have our screen size, which we see here, which is our 390 by 844, it doesn't mean that we cannot go below that. So think of any scrolling site. So again, if we click this upper part, and if I go ahead and move this down, I can make this page as long as I possibly want it to be. What you see here is a little dotted line. That's what we call the fold. The fold means essentially where this has been set up. This is all you'll see when you land on the home. So anything below that, you'll have to scroll to. So you'll see a fold on a website, on a desktop, you'll see it in all the other phone sizes, and it'll obviously be in a different spot. You can, in fact, move this, but I strongly suggest not. You always want to be aware of what is actually visible on your homepage and anything that's below, because anything that's important that you want to make sure your viewer is going to immediately see, you don't want to disappear. You don't want them to have to scroll to see it. So I kind of went a little bit extreme with the extender here, but what I do want to suggest, or what I do want to add here, is maybe I want to suggest to my client that I think adding a little features section is a pretty cool idea. So let's say I want to take that font down a little bit. I'm going to align it, center it. Let's say we've got our today's feature. And we'll say bring that image up. And now let's just grab some boxes. We'll turn that grid back on. And we're gonna maybe fill it with this color. Maybe a bit light, go a little bit darker. And then again, let's say do a 2-column. I do find that I'm doing this. I do find that my gutter is a little bit small. So at this stage of the game, I could potentially go in and adjust my grid. I'm not going to at this time, but again, if you adjust on one page, you should be sure to, or ensure to, that it applies to all of your pages. So let's just call this now feature 1. Just easy to use those alignments. Feature 2. Again, I find this text a bit large. I do not have an actual body copy text laid out, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop that one in there. And then you can keep creating these if maybe you want to add more features. Maybe you want to add a footer. A footer being at the base of your website. Usually there's like the address, your navigation gets repeated there, etc. But if you think that's enough, we can just click And then we can just kind of drag that one up there. So at least you're giving your client a good idea as to what kind of goes below the fold. Maybe it's additional feature items, etc. And that kind of concludes how we kind of create that homepage with our hamburger menu. Keeping in mind, when we do have that hamburger menu, we do need to see what the navigation will look like once you click, and we'll jump into that in our next video. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, when we do have a hamburger style menu, we do need to show our client what that navigation and that menu is going to look like when you click it. So let's just jump. Let's just go ahead and drag that over. It's not really necessary to show what it would look like below the fold. So I'm just going to snap that back to the original size. Just delete anything extra that kind of leaves our artboard. So we do have a couple ways, as we outlined in our web anatomy course. There's a few ways that you can design your navigation to open up. So if we look at our UI kits, lots of ways. So it can pop up from the side, it could take up a whole page, really large with graphics, etc. I do personally think a nice simple or two simple ways is either taking over the whole screen or maybe part of. So just for today, I'm just going to say, let's just do part of. So again, we'll just delete any extra elements. So say, for instance, I want that navigation to open up, and it's going to have a nice dark background, so it really stands out. So I'm going to remove that border again. So again, when we click, this bumps out. So we want to have our navigation text to come in here now. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's grab that copy. So now we just put our nav in there. We've got home. Then we've got order. And we have profile. And last but not least, we have checkout. Lots of times we'll have some social icons in there. So let's just grab those little guys and plunk them in there. Make them white. Whoop. And we group. So now let's click and drag, and let's go ahead and center. Now let's grab all of these. So I'm kind of thinking a larger font would be beneficial here. So I think that 29 is a bit large, so I'm going to go for a 25. This is where you start playing with your font sizes. And if you feel as though your fonts and your character styles are getting a little bit out of control, that's where you might want to scale back and revisit. Okay, so where can I get a little more consistent? Start deleting some, start reapplying new ones, etc. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think they're probably quite spaced out. We can bring them a little bit closer together. But keeping in mind, we don't want those to be too far apart from one another or too close together, because we do want to make sure there's enough space for fingers to hit those. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe add a little bit of a white line here, or a white stroke, and then whoop, bring those between. So again, let's just make sure our spacing is nice and even. And then let's make sure our spacing is nice and even here too. Go ahead and grab and center. And we're looking in pretty good shape. So when we do this, last but not least, we always want to make sure that we can close that navigation. So sometimes if you just hit that nav button again, it works, but we never really want to leave anything up to surprise here. So let's just go ahead over to our mobile kits, and let's jump up and let's just grab a little, looks like I forgot to grab an X. Here's a nice little white one already. Plug that in. Always finding somewhere that things can align with. Just keeps everything nice and tidy. Big fan of making sure your alignment is always consistent. And I think that's now in good shape. So when you are, say, presenting this to your client or say creating your presentation for me, this is where you would put a little note or an annotation to say, when you click your navigation, the website slides to the side or the navigation slides in from the left, and you can select and move from your website there.